Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, now we're joined by Mr. Darren Walker, who is the president of Ford Foundation. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Happy to be here, Chamberlain.
You look like you've had some Nigerian local delicacy we call fufu here. You look nice and sharp.
Thank you very much.
Have you had any of the local delicacy here?
Well, I will tell you that the thing about this great country and Lagos as a city is that it's a global city. I mean, it's the thing that I see when I come, and I've been here countless times, and every time I come to Lagos, I am amazed at the transformation underway, the change, the progress, the dynamism, the urbanism. This is truly a global city.
Well, thank you. But let's talk about what you do, Ford Foundation. I mean, it's like they've been there for like forever. Everybody will always say that. But in terms of what you do, how do you measure impact if you're getting the kind of results which keeps you going?
Sure. Well, the Ford Foundation has worked in West Africa for 6 decades. In fact, all the way back to the 1950s, we were investing in young leaders, investing in human capital because of our belief in the future of this region and this continent. In fact, a young man named Kofi Annan was one of the first people we provided with a scholarship that allowed him to go to McAllister College in St. Paul, Minnesota. And to this day, the Secretary General Annan refers to that investment in him as a life-changing experience. And what we do at the Ford Foundation is to provide those kinds of life-changing experiences in order to reduce inequality, to build and support a more just country, a more just Nigeria, a more just West Africa, and indeed a more just planet.
And I see that now you have an endowment of $1 billion.
Actually, it's $12.5 billion.
I beg your pardon, $12.5 billion. But okay, but you also did announce that $1 billion that's going to be for what you term mission-related investments.
That's right.
Tell us about it.
That's right. Sure. Well, we are using part of that $12.5 billion, $1 billion, to invest in social enterprises, to invest in what we call double bottom line investments that return both a financial impact and a social impact. Together, that total return, we believe, has a larger social impact on society. And the kinds of investments would be investments in housing, financial services, power, all of these projects and enterprises that we've got all over Nigeria return a financial yield to the investor, but also do good for society. And there are many, many challenges and issues in the country of Nigeria that could be solved through impact investing. So this kind of investing, which is growing, going across the continent, is going to be a critical part of our strategy. And indeed, the future of investing on the continent is impact investing.
Do you see this working, for instance, in Nigeria's northeast region?
Absolutely, I see it working. It can work in even conflict zones. It works because there are opportunities to make money. There are opportunities for investment, for smart investors. And there are a lot of investors looking for those opportunities. So I believe that this knows no geography, no bounds. Where there is opportunity for capital to be invested and a return, there's an opportunity for impact investing.
You have this Ford Foundation to get towards improving lives, basically. And yes. How much of that would you say has been pushed in the African sub-region? Let's say for West Africa, for instance, where you've been playing very prominently in. How much of that would you say has encouraged local participation, i.e. looking at people who have that kind of support base that can that can partner with you?
That's a great question, and it's one of the reasons we have offices, and we're one of the few American foundations that has offices in Africa. We have offices in Johannesburg, in Nairobi, in Cairo, and here in Lagos. And that is because we believe we need to be close to the people, the communities, and the challenges that we are missioned to work on. We do not believe that we can, from New York City or Washington, send forward remits here to Africans as to what they need. We have to be here and listen and respond to the priorities of the African people, of the Nigerian people in this case. And being at the grassroots, working with grassroots organizations is something we've done for over 6 decades. So I couldn't agree with you more. This is an imperative. So tell us, ultimately, the challenges here are to be solved by Nigerians. They're not going to be solved by Americans.
So what was the strategy? I mean, how do you execute? You partner with government agencies and the private sector?
We partner with the private sector, with the public sector, and at the center of our work is civil society, because we believe that any healthy, vibrant democracy needs a strong and resilient civil society. So there are many institutions, from universities to human rights groups to educational institutions and beyond, who we have supported over our years here. Because ultimately, if Nigeria is to be a strong nation, as any strong democracy, you've got to have a strong civil society.
We've talked about education. As a matter of fact, you did mention the success story of what's his name now?
The Secretary General.
The Secretary General. And do you see a sprouting of that in Nigeria, for instance, where you could get to a level where education becomes a norm? I mean, in terms of pushing it to that level where the girl child, for instance, is having that opportunity to explore herself to the best of her abilities and be that global figure that represents what women should be today.
Yes. Well, we believe that it is essential that young people, and particularly girls and women, be empowered to participate in all facets of society here in Nigeria and in the world. The potential that can be realized if young girls are empowered, are educated, are given opportunity, is unimaginable on some levels, because the power that comes from investing in girls and women has been demonstrated economically, socially, and otherwise. For the Ford Foundation, today we are investing in new initiatives, looking at youth, the participation of young people, because this is a nation where we're approaching half the population is under the age of 30. That's a huge opportunity for the transformation if we invest in them, if we believe in their potential, if we demonstrate that they are worthy and that they are assets. One of the challenges is that societies often look at young people through a lens of deficit, through a lens of problem, as opposed to seeing them as assets and opportunities. And at Ford Foundation, we see young people as assets, as the future. The challenge is, how do we invest in them? How do we leverage the public sector, the private sector, civil society to ensure that they are strong and can contribute in the future?
I like that part about young people and what you want to do with them. But before I come to my question, let me go to our colleague in Abuja, Maupe. She's got a question as well. Maupe, go ahead.
Well, Mr. Walker, you're welcome to Nigeria. Just wondering, in all of this, talk about donor fatigue and sometimes the fact that the problems don't seem to go away. In some instances, they do tend to increase. How do agencies, organizations like yours, philanthropic organizations like yours, prioritize the areas where they concentrate on? Do you ever get overwhelmed?
Well, thank you, Maupe. I will say that it is true that sometimes donors get fatigued, but a donor who believes in a country can never give up. And we have seen progress in West Africa. We have seen progress in Nigeria. Although on any given day you may feel anguished or dejected about something, it's important to put things in historical context and to see the progress that this country has made. So I am actually energized by what is happening in Nigeria today. Every time I come to this country, I leave more hopeful. And while on any given day, as I say, we may feel concerned, we may feel overwhelmed, the problems of this country are solvable. They are not intractable. The question is, can we mobilize the leadership, the resources, to strategically invest so that we can move this nation forward? That's our remit here, our pledge to the people of Nigeria.
Can you give us any specifics in terms of some of the examples that give you hope?
Well, I'm happy to talk about some of the things I have seen here recently. I have visited on this most recent trip a group of people working on technology, for example, a program at Afrinali, which is doing amazing technology work, empowering young people, using the media to tell stories, to bring narratives forward of hope and opportunity in this country. There are many examples such as that. I visited yesterday with His Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, and we reviewed a very exciting plan for a new museum, which will be transformational, which will put forward the story, the history of this great nation. Projects like that are ambitious, are inspiring, motivating. And so I see projects like that. I meet people at a summit we co-hosted with the Africa Capital Alliance yesterday. We had a ballroom in a hotel filled with investors interested in impact investing, looking for opportunities to invest in double bottom line projects and enterprises. So this country is abundant with enterprising, smart people and investment opportunity. So again, I am very bullish on Nigeria. We at the Ford Foundation believe in this country's future.
What do you think about donations? When we get donations from donor agencies, basically, and is geared towards the Northeast because of the ravaging insurgency that we have in our hands over there. But you hear there's so much monies that are, should I say, donated to that cause. But the governors in those states complain that that money's never got there. Is there a structure the money goes through before getting to them, or does it go to financing of the whole chain of the process from where it is originating from?
Well, the core issue here is one of transparency. And it's why we need to have civil society organizations that are demanding donor organizations and government be transparent, that they be held to account to the public for expenditures of donor money, of the resources of the public purse. And so while I can't comment on any specific matter in the Northeast, what I can say is anywhere in the world where there is a strong democracy, you've got civil society organizations and the media working together, asking questions, interrogating public officials, demanding answers, wanting accountings to be publicly made available. And that is what we support here in this country. And I believe that ultimately it's that kind of organizational infrastructure that is going to be essential to help move the country forward and to address some of the issues you raise.
Okay, looking at Nigeria, we desire to be painted or to be seen and act as a giant on this continent. And people want to see things like how you would support an industrious young man or woman who wants to get to that level where they will be recognized along the lines of having a Nobel Prize, for instance. How do they go about that?
Well, you are a giant on this continent. Let's be clear. The fact is, Nigeria is the largest economy on this continent. And therefore, you are a leader, and the world is watching what is happening in Nigeria. I think one of the essential ingredients to investing in human capital will be the investment of indigenous philanthropy in Nigeria. While everyone knows of Henry Ford and John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie, you have a new group emerging, people like Mr. Dangote, who are taking a role through their own philanthropic work to improve this society. Part of it needs to be in investing in individuals, investing in their ideas and in their potential, and modeling for them, as John D. Rockefeller did, as Andrew Carnegie did, as Henry Ford did, for Americans, that these rich industrialists can be role models. They can tell us their stories of how they started very humbly, as Mr. Rockefeller, Ford, and Carnegie did, very humbly, and yet rose to great wealth, great significance, and made transformational change in the world. Well, Nigeria is producing its first generation of philanthropists who we hope a generation from now we can look back and say, we have our own Rockefellers, our own Fords, our own homegrown produced philanthropists here who have made us proud because they have made it possible for the next generation of Kofi Annans, of Nobel Prize winners, Wole Soyinka, etc., to move forward through their investments.
Well, I'm going to follow up on that in a bit, but let me follow up on something you said previously. What kind of results are you getting, or impressions are you getting about changing the narrative or mindset that, seeing young people as a challenge and not as an asset? Because I hear a lot of young people say, look, the older generation just don't want to give us a chance to do certain things. How are you approaching that?
Well, in fairness, young people around the world have always said that about old people, right? It's not unique to Nigeria. But in all seriousness, I think here it is going to be essential that institutions step forward and that we have new narratives put forward, which is why we invest, for example, in storytelling, in narrative, in media, and why we are thinking how we can tell the story of the continent in a different way. Because this is something that concerns us greatly at the Foundation, and that is that the story of Africa has been told not by Africans primarily, but by Europeans and Americans. And what we need are storytellers who are authentic, genuinely rooted here, and understand the conditions and circumstances here to be able to tell their stories to each other and to the world.
All right, we'll go to break on that note, but we'll be back in a moment and get your concluding comments. Don't go away. Welcome back. Our concluding moments with Mr. Darren Walker. Let me ask you this. You said that we now have our own generation of philanthropists who are coming through, but we also do know we have a lot of professionals in this country, young ones, who find it really difficult starting out. Yes. So for our philanthropists here, I mean, is it just about giving money? How should we approach this?
No, it's not just about giving money. Just giving away money is not philanthropy. Philanthropy is strategically thought out planning for impact with one's resources. And
impact investing. Yeah.
Well, and it is being clear in your mind about the change that you are seeking in the world through your philanthropy. And my advice to Nigerian philanthropists is to first be strategic. There are many generous Nigerians across this country, but simply giving money here and there for this and that without forethought, without thinking about the population you want to invest in. For example, I encourage all to invest in young people because young people are the future of this country. And so to the extent that philanthropists can mentor, can support through scholarships and fellowships and internships in their businesses, it will make a transformational difference in the lives of young people. Young people need mentorship, and there are ways in which philanthropists can structure mentorships so that young people can learn from their example and be inspired.
So if a young person were to approach you and say, Mr. Walker, I need help, what would you tell such a person?
Well, it depends on the kind of help that they are seeking. If they're in college, for example, I think the help that is most needed is the kind of professional, getting on the professional track, if you will. So that comes through an internship or through the kind of work that they do during the year that's connected to their major and connected to what they ultimately hope to do when they get out of college. If it's someone who is not in college, for example, we support technical and vocational education because everyone doesn't have to go to college in order to be a success. And there are many jobs for which go unfilled because there isn't skilled labor. And that's why the kinds of vocational and technical education that we're looking at and working with the government to measure the skills gap, the mismatch of supply and demand of labor, is so important. Because ultimately, a society needs people who have degrees, professional degrees, and people who have technical, vocational education.
All right, let's make this a quick one because we need to go. Are you happy with your partners here, how they're performing?
Absolutely. First of all, let me say that I am optimistic because of our partners here. I am very bullish on this country because I see resilient, determined, committed people who deeply love their country and want to see it progress and want to see change and broader shared prosperity and more justice and more inclusion. These are the things the Ford Foundation is supporting through our grantees, and it's why I'm encouraged today.
And as a matter of fact, we welcome Mr. Darren Walker anytime because we like people who support our young people and get them to the next level. We've been speaking with Mr. Darren Walker, President of Ford Foundation. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
All right, that's the show today as well. We thank you all for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain, Usoh.
Thanks for watching. I'm Gimba, Umar.
And I'm Maupe Ogun. Thank you.